Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
We've heard about all kinds of identity theft in the last few years, and there is a crazy story out of Tampa about somebody who lost their business in a business identity theft case. And this exposes a flaw in the system that exists in many states. Now, Florida, it looks like they're working on fixing this because of a story like this being so widely publicized. But it does worry you. And I've mentioned before that a lot of clerks, court clerks, county clerks, and so on, you can walk into a courthouse with a piece of paper and say, I need to file this. And a lot of times they'll just take it and file it. Their job is to accept filings. Many times their job is not to scrutinize the filings or verify that they're accurate or done properly. Their job is simply to accept filings. And in fact, I can tell you of a couple courts I know of where there's a box and you can walk up and timestamp your own stuff and drop it in and file it yourself. Human doesn't even look at it until later, and they just go through and they file everything. It gets filed. So the story here, Dave sent me, thanks a lot, from WTSP Tampa. Carolina lead wrote this. Florida man loses business after someone hijacks his company. The man and his wife left New York for paradise. They quit their job, sold their home, and they decided to live in Florida. His dream was to own a boat towing company. So they made that happen, and they opened a business, and they started doing that. On their profile, he says, I was the incorporator and the president of the company, and I owned all the shares. So every state has a process whereby you can incorporate under state laws, and you file that with the appropriate authorities in the state. I'm assuming that's true of all 50 states, but with my luck, there's some state out there that's outlawed corporations. He goes, that's when the nightmare began, because after months of hard work, someone hijacked his company. They went onto the Florida website, and they filed an annual report, which apparently anyone can do, whether they're associated with a business or not. And in that annual report, they removed me as an officer of the company and installed themselves, making me no longer part of the company. Now, of course, it's all fraudulent paperwork. But because they simply accept filings and someone filed an annual report, they accepted it for filing. So now, according to official records of the state of Florida, this guy is no longer even involved with his company because the new annual report says he's not. So in the process, he wound up losing 2 boats, a truck, and his ability to operate the business. And so he said they went down and secured duplicate titles for all my assets, transferred the titles out of the company name and into a new company name. So the man went to the police and said, hey, I believe this is a crime. But law enforcement didn't want to get involved because they said it's a civil issue. So much like when someone moves into your house and you can't get them out, he says, I tried Hillsborough County Sheriff, the Tampa Police Department, the FBI, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I wrote to the governor's office. I wrote to all my state reps. And I either got conciliatory answers like, well, we're sorry. That's not what we do. And he said he got that even from the state attorney. Now, some of you are going to say, but why doesn't he just file a new annual report and put it all back in his name? Well, he can. But the problem is the assets are all gone because somebody siphoned those off before he discovered this has happened. They all said their hands were tied because it was a civil matter. He did get legal help and managed to transfer the business back to his name, but it had already caused a lot of damage. He said, when I went to the Department of State website, it said very clearly that filing a false report was a felony. So there is a crime here, okay? So I looked to them to give me some guidance as to enforcement, and there was none to be had. They said that, and this is the Department of State writing to him in an email, that they accept all documents at face value. So the website is on the honor system. In the state of Florida, the de facto business registry is on the honor system. If that scares you, it should, he said. The Division of Corporations falls under Florida's Department of State. Companies file annual reports on sunbiz.org. Positions can be changed using the online tool. So a state representative out of Sarasota stepped in to help after hearing another local business got hijacked. So this man is not alone. This has happened before. How frustrating that there's a government record that is so easy to be hijacked, she said. She said she started doing her own research and soon realized that there was a legislative solution to make our state-run systems a little harder against intrusion. She then tested the registry website herself. She picked a Sarasota restaurant and went in as if she was going to renew or update its company files. She said, I was one click away from saying, yes, I want the new officer in charge to be me, with my name, my phone number, my address. So she said she did not steal the restaurant, but she could have with one mouse click, and the restaurant would be in her name. So what she did do was filed a bill in the Florida House aimed at preventing the misuse of the state's insecure public record-keeping system for businesses. It requires the state to use a password-protected system or another cybersecurity measure to make sure this can't happen anymore. Meanwhile, this same rep is talking and says, it's awful. You work so hard to build a company or to start your first business, and you put something together, and then a criminal can just log on with a couple of clips, take it away from you. I assume she means a couple of clicks, but could be a typo. As for the man who lost his business at the front end of this, he can fall back on his long-time career as a physical therapist, but he's fighting for other victims using his own website, sunbiztheft.com. So, look what happened to me, it's bad, he said, while admitting he's still better off than others who may find themselves in the same situation. He said, I'm going to recover. I have a lot to fall back on. I'm very fortunate. Other people, maybe not so much. And it's not right. It's not right because the preponderance of businesses that are stolen from people who don't have the means to fight back. And of course, by the time they find out it's happened, well, then the damage may have already been done. So the law takes effect on July 1st because the governor did sign it. And it's a crazy story, but it gets you back to how many of these systems are run. And the weird part is that it's been this way for years. And I'm suspecting that this has happened all along periodically, but not so often as to catch the attention of the people in power. And how difficult will it be to implement a plan that simply says, when you register your corporation, we'll give you a PIN or a code or a password or something. And then when you file future filings, you've got to remember this code or password to enter your information in. And I'm assuming that somebody in IT is going to have to go in and make some changes to the system. And of course, any system can be beaten, so there's a chance that this could still happen afterwards. But it seems far too easy to do it the old way. And so you have to remember that a lot of clerks are not there to do anything other than accept things for filing. And so if you walk up to a court clerk's counter in many places, you simply hand them a document and go, I want to file this. And all they're going to do is look at it and go, does this document require a fee? If it's a lawsuit or a complaint, there's a filing fee for that. If it's a motion, well, there's a fee for that, but it's substantially different than the filing fee for the complaint. But if it's like a witness list, I'm making stuff up here, but I mean, these are all things that get filed in a lawsuit. It's a witness list, there's no filing fee for it. It just gets thrown in the file. And so all they do is glance at it and go, what type of document is this? Okay, it does not require a fee, or it does require a fee. And if it requires a fee, they reach into the counter, they pull out a thing that has a list of fees, a fee schedule, and they'll check off the one that applies to you. They'll write the case number on it, and they'll hand it to you and go, here, pay this. And someone will make a note later on that, yes, the filing fee was paid for this, or the filing fee was not paid for this. I've actually seen attorneys up at a podium before in court arguing a motion with a judge, and the judge goes, did you file this motion? The filing fee was never paid. I mean, at the time it was $20. I mean, that's embarrassing. Guy's up there wearing a $900 tie. You got $20 on you? No, go talk to the clerk. So sometimes they simply look at what's being filed and say, oh, yes, this is the kind of thing I file. Or they look at it and go, there's a fee associated with this. Or like here, it's an internet portal that is just open to the public. Anybody can come in and file anything they want. So you come in to simply file an annual report for some company you don't own, but your annual report says you do. And somehow the system's not paying attention to who's filing it, or it's not even set up that way. So it's a crazy story, but I feel bad for the guy that it happened to. But hopefully this new law has fixed that. So maybe it's got a happy ending. But like I said, it goes into effect July 1st. And from that point forward, maybe that'll resolve it. We'll see. So Dave, thanks for sending the story. Carolina Lead wrote it for WTSP. They're out of Tampa. Florida man loses business after someone hijacked his company, and it was easier than you would have thought. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Fear closes down our minds and our hearts.